Hello and welcome back to the I-League Season 2 SEA qualifiers here on HeflaTV 2. I'm Grandis. I'll be joined by Mike Lores for Game 2 of a best-of-3 series between Invasion Esports and MiTH Trust.
Dyer's pick.
Sorry about that, Mike. I forgot to unmute my mic. Introduction already through. We're into the draft.
All right, well, I have no idea what you said, but either way, it is going to be Game 2. MiTH Trust up one game after a pretty decent performance up against a draft that we thought was much worse, but they got through the bad laning stage, and we'll see if they could do something similar, or even if they have to. Centaur's banned out, which is going to mean Invasion first pick the Brewmaster. I like the progression of those events, though. Silencing from Scarith Mage still in the pool, and MiTH Trust should be considering that one. Maybe taking a quick Vengeful Spirit as well.
Yeah, that would be a decent way to open up the draft. I definitely agree with that course of action. Would be a really nice supporting duo, defensive, with the swaps coming up from the Vengeful Spirit, as well as a whole lot of damage. They instead go for the Ogre Magi to open things up. And as far as performance from Ogre, last game worked pretty darn well for MiTH, and I think it's probably worth picking up again, especially if you can replicate that multicast performance.
I'm assuming it's Naki going to be playing again, and unless he used all of his skill in the last game, which is probable, there's only a finite amount of skill that you could have in this game, then he should be able to do a similar job in this game. Still, I like the Skyrath Mage here, because Skyrath Mage Ogre Magi is a ridiculous combo. You can play it as offensively as you possibly can with a support duo, but if need be, defensive is also good. Tidehunter's the pick. Not that great versus Brewmaster, but a Medusa very early on from Invasion. I think MiTH Trust are going to have more than enough time in order to prepare themselves for an aggressive game, or to play an aggressive game versus the Medusa.
Right now, Invasion, very mana-reliant heroes, and the anti-mage ban definitely makes sense when you're going for the Medusa, and as does the Venge. Just any damage steroids to give the Medusa extra punching power is very nice for you, and although it's not the most conventional bans, okay, never mind, I'm not even going to suggest it. Faceless Void's already taken out by Invasion, which definitely does have its merits, being able to bring down the Medusa and Brewmaster before they get off their ultimates or any damage in the case of Medusa.
So as far as hard countering Medusa, Anti-Mage is the one probably on the top of most people's lists, although Nyx Assassin and Lion get a little bit better. I actually do like the Lion here. Mana Drain on Medusa may be a little bit slow, but just having a Finger of Death, Impale, or Spike, you know, all these great tools at dealing with Medusa, or prepping yourselves for playing aggressively, is a more softer counter for Medusa, but also a definitely good way to go. So no matter what happens, MiTH Trust, they should be looking to end this game before Invasion really get big on that Medusa. It is possible, I suppose, to try to outlate game the Medusa, but it does seem unnecessary to try that. There's no point when you could just take a different tack entirely.
For sure. Although I don't think we're going to see it, I'd love to see a mid-line and just get a really early Aghanim Scepter, and even though Mana Drain isn't the fastest of spells, if you get it maxed out, it's actually incredibly good against Medusa. If they want to go for something a little bit more stable to counter that Mana Shield, a Wex Invoker, I think, could be decent.
That would actually be pretty sweet. Like, we don't really see it that often, but if you EMP Medusa, she's going to be really hurting. And also, it's good against Brewmaster. If you somehow drain out his mana before he could split, then he's just completely screwed. Even if you go for Exhort Invoker, the large amount of damage could also be very nice for MiTH. So setting up with a Fire Blast into a Sunstrike can help the early game aggression from MiTH. So I think Invoker in general should be a pretty nice pickup for them. And I'm sure they're considering it right now, though they maybe want to pick it up a little bit later. It is definitely a possibility.
Yeah, and even if not for the mana burn on the Wex... Oh, it is going to be the Lion.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, just having that instant disable up against Brewmaster with the Hex into the Earth Spike, Mana Drain up against Medusa, as well as burst damage to take down a Brewmaster before he gets off his split, I think all around is a really nice pick. Especially if Medusa builds into a Mantis style, those illusions aren't going to be reliable with just a Hex Mana Drain to take them out.
Yeah, so Invasion, they need probably heroes in order to fight early or to play defensively. Dazzle has been a rather high pick in these past couple of games, and it would work out pretty well for Invasion in this particular one. They need other supports. As far as shutting down MiTH, it's really hard because MiTH are the ones with all the aggressive power. You could try to out-defensive them, or you could try to out-aggressive them, and I think probably defensive is the way to go. So maybe we're going to be seeing a Dazzle once again. They just need like heroes that have range and that can poke and try to buy some space for Medusa. I like Dazzle here. I like Rubik here.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. A lot of good spells to steal, and in that sense, I'm kind of leaning towards the Rubik pick for Invasion, but as far as their last core is concerned, what would actually be good for them? They have a decent amount of initiation from Brewmaster, but it's by no means an end-all be-all. Batrider kind of feels like a decent pick, but up against the Tidehunter, if you initiate onto him and don't instantly burst him down, you're going to get a Ravage to your face, and that's never a situation you want to be in, so I'm honestly not exactly sure. Maybe a Magnus is on the table for Empower for Dusa, as well as just another big ultimate to contest with.
I like the Batrider here if they also pick up a Skywrath Mage, just so that they will have that burst. Otherwise, yeah, you run into the problem where Tidehunter is not the one you want to initiate on. Lion is pretty decent at countering Bat initiations as well because Hex comes out so quickly. Not the highest range in the game, but you could still work around that sometimes. Or they could go down the Shadow Demon Mirana path, which is another way to go. It's usually a path that's untouched by one side, and it will be perfectly reasonable. As far as setting up kills early on, a Shadow Demon Mirana lane can gank with the Brewmaster really easily, or gank into a Brewmaster lane very easily, while at the same time buying a little bit of space for Medusa. So I think this is reasonable, but this... Okay, well, if you're talking about aggression, I don't think you get any more aggressive than Night Stalker.
No, if there ever was a Night Stalker game, I think this is a pretty good one. I generally don't like going for Night Stalker, I think, as far as aggressive heroes are concerned. Although he does fit the role pretty nicely, he just fails at so many other things that might not be the choice. But this game, I think, is completely the exception. Having a long duration stance up against Brewmaster is going to be wonderful for them. And honestly, Invasion, all they're going to have in the early game to contest this roaming coming out from MiTH Trust is a Shadow Demon Mirana and Arrow, and that's just so... It's not unreliable, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it's so limited. It can lock down one hero, but you really need to keep all three of these at arm's length, the Ogre, Lion, and Night Stalker.
Yeah, so Invasion, they need one more core hero. It needs to be someone who's not very easy for the Night Stalker to take down, and as far as that is concerned, strength heroes are on the top of your list, but for MiTH, they're looking for one more core hero as well. Their lanes with 2 melee cores are a little bit weak. I like the Viper here for MiTH Trust as their last, mostly because it would also be fantastic for Invasion to pick up, so you might as well pseudo-ban that hero out. Viper would just, I feel, tie their entire lineup together. It'll be a nice aggressive package, limited late game power, but enough so that Invasion, if they do drag it on a little bit longer, it's not going to be the end all. Morphling is the pick. MiTH Trust maybe going for a little bit more late game than I think they should be going for, since Night Stalker, Morphling, typically two sides of the coin, but it's not the worst pick either, given Invasion's lack of CC.
Yeah, especially with Shotgun plus Ogre Magi Fire Blast and Lion Finger as a combination. You can burst people down, even if they look like they're incredibly tanky, like a Dusa with Scotty, in just a blink of an eye with that amount of damage. As far as Invasion's last pick, it's going to be a Batrider that you're talking about earlier, and it's a pretty good one. They definitely were lacking that lockdown, as you said earlier, and this is going to give them another way to start fights. Blink Daggers are going to be key for Invasion, as they are in most games.
They're going to have initiation now, though their damage in order to kill off people in that lasso is going to be fairly limited. They have lasso into arrow, which is a very nice combination at making sure the enemies don't run anywhere. And MiTH Trust don't really have that many defensive capabilities, but still, I'm concerned that Invasion in the early stages won't have enough damage. Brewmaster, Batrider, or Batrider kind of on the low end, Mirana, Shadow Demon on the low end as well. Brewmaster is perfectly reasonable to fight early, but Medusa's not going to be doing jack. So early game, it's all about MiTH Trust, and depending on how the first 10 minutes of the game go, that'll just either make or break the game for Invasion. Their plan, just turtle up, get the Blink Dagger and Brewmaster, and hope for the best. But for MiTH Trust, they have a lot more options.
They definitely do. And even if that first 10 minutes doesn't go in the favor of MiTH Trust and it goes evenly, they'll still have the second nighttime to fall back on. If at 20 minutes MiTH aren't leading and Invasion have been able to turtle it out that long, maybe we run into some issues. But I don't know, as far as late game heroes to contest against Adusa, MiTH do have a Night Stalker and a Morphling, whereas Invasion are just sitting on Deuce's farm. It's going to be pretty key for her to actually pick up those items. ADTR might transition into a little bit of a carry role, on this Mirana, but nothing super significant. That said, I guess I'll introduce the invasion side since I've already kind of started with the Mirana. ADTR is going to be playing in that hero OK on the Shadow Demon, FCFC on the Brewmaster, Woof Woof or Kesekimba on the Medusa, Ghost on the Batrider. I wish everybody would just use their official names, but, you know, it's never going to happen, especially in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, well, at any rate, we have most of the real names for MiTH Trust going to be Naki on the Ogre Magi. Jab is a flying Tidehunter right now, so that's pretty freaking sweet. Like, this doesn't look safe at all for the Night Stalker, but it looks like the Unpause is going to cancel that. He's playing the Tidehunter. MyPro is going to be on the Night Stalker. SD is going to be supporting as the Lion, and like Hells is going to be playing the Morphling. Currently, everyone loading out towards the top lane. It looks like Tidehunter is going to go mid.
I like it.
Or they are just going to shuffle it. I doubt they're going to have 4 heroes up here, so they're probably going to shuffle it in some way, but it still remains to be seen.
Okay, I'd like it if they actually stuck with these lanes, except for sending Lakel's down towards bottom up against the Batrider. Tidehunter mid versus a Brewmaster is a very functional lane for Tide, and soloing the safe lane versus a Batrider for Morphling is pretty easy, even if he gets a lot of stick charges on, or not stick charges, but the sticky napalm charges onto him. It doesn't really bother Morphling that much. He'll still have waveform as well as strength morph to keep himself safe, and unless he gets like 8 onto him for some reason and already has used his waveform, Lakel should survive and be able to farm.
Well, it looks like MiTH Trust there not going to stick with what they have. Jab is in fact going to go towards the bottom lane. He's going to be going up against the Batrider. He already has the magic stick and he'll be fine. Who's going to go towards the mid lane? It looks like it's just going to be MyPro. Night Stalker versus Brewmaster is actually not the worst for either side. Brewmaster has the advantage of having a slow in that clap and an AoE to push the lane, but Night Stalker is slightly tankier. So overall this lane should be even. And then, of course, we are going to have to look at the top lane. Morphling, Lion, and Ogre Magi versus the Shadow Demon, Mirana, and Medusa. I'm pretty sure, no matter how you slice it, this is a lane with MiTH's advantage.
Yeah, I think so too. Just with the raw amount of lockdown and damage that they're pumping out. No matter what Ogre goes for first, it's still going to be beneficial. Tidehunter actually down in bottom. 5 stacks of napalm. This is going to be our first blood. There's nothing he can do. My goodness, double damage Batrider with that sticky napalm, just able to run down the Tide. That was completely unexpected.
That death was not supposed to happen, and if it was going to happen, it wasn't going to happen until level 6. But Tidehunter even ate all of his sticks, and I guess just DD on Ghost surprising him, and he just didn't see that one coming, and quite frankly neither did I, because unless the DD was picked up, that wasn't going to happen. Up towards top, we're going to see the starts of this aggressive lane. I really don't want to be looking at the bottom lane since no one should be dying over there, and I'd rather look at top, but it looks like top is fight is starting to start to break out. Snake gonna fly right through. SD gonna get blocked a little bit by Ogre Illusions, and he's gonna be brought down. However, OK looks like will be the trade with the waveform forward. He will be dropped. Naki taking quite a bit of damage, but Morphling doing even more down to ADTR. Naki is completely out of mana, and Lakel's does not have enough mana for a waveform either. Not for another 10, which would have gotten the kill. He's going to go to Ketchikimba instead, who's going to instead prioritize a couple of CS. Arrow's going to fly once again, will miss. Overall, it's a 1-for-1 trade, though Invasion do draw theirs first. Lakel's makes it a return. Lakel's actually does get the kill, whereas Mirana gets the kill for Invasion. So I guess slight advantage MiTH, but still the bottom lane difference is very, very tangible.
It really is, and honestly, trading even is not what MiTH want to be doing when it comes to these kills. If they got the secondary one, I think it's just fine for them, but right now the status quo is still concerning for MiTH. They kind of need to be winning these engagements, although their Morphling's farming pretty well. It's about on par with what the Deuce is getting.
And once they hit, I think, probably the second nighttime, then things are really going to start to explode for MiTH. And by then, the Tidehunter, assuming he doesn't get picked off again, will have shrugged off most of the loss in this lane already. He has a stick charges working for him. His Anchor Smash is going to do its best to zone Ghost out of the lane. And overall, it should be fine for the Tidehunter, but overall, I thought he wasn't going to die in the first place. So who knows? What do I know? Naki is going to maybe spot OK and ADTR. They have an Invis rune on the Mirana, but actually using that is going to be a little bit difficult. Top lane, as far as Medusa's farm, she is getting a little bit. Morphling's getting just as much. So far, the lane for MiTH is a failure, but it's not too late to change that.
No, it definitely isn't, especially now that they have level 2 on both the Ogre and the Lion. This is a really scary time for the enemy team in particular. Just the amount of CC they're able to pump out between Hex, Earthspike, Fire Blast, Ignite. If anybody gets caught out with that, you're pretty much dead.
Maybe you get saved a little bit by a disruption, but once the disruption is over, then you're just completely screwed, especially since ADTR is still level 1. He doesn't even have a leap out, And even if he did, like with a Morphling waveform, Leap isn't going to be just a get out of jail free card as it normally is. So it's a dangerous situation for Invasion up towards top, yet Medusa's still farming enough to make this lane worthwhile. Over towards mid, we have more or less a wash. Brewmaster, kind of to be expected, with a slight win in CS and denies and stuff like that. So overall Invasion, I think they do have, right now, some pretty decent lanes. That could change so quickly because of the Night Stalker.
It really could, and he's the hero that we are probably most interested to see perform. If MiPro sits on this lane, however, and doesn't roam and get those kills, especially at the second nighttime is where things really become dire for him, it's more or less just a wasted pick. This first nighttime, we are going to see, again, a jump onto Jab. He's going to be able to get a pretty lucky proc of that Kraken shell, and underneath the tower, it's now Ghost to be under a whole lot of trouble, but the fire damage is enough. It's going to be a 1-for-1. Batrider coming out ahead since he gets the experience to kill, whereas Tidehunter does not.
At the same time, top, they're going to go for OK. He already uses self-destruction. Lakel's trying to do enough damage to kill off the Shadow Demon. Will just fall short. Naki also is going to drop low, but he will be fine. Lakel's going to man-fight ADTR. What are you doing, Lakel's? That is a bad idea, and he will pay the price for it. He was 2v1, and now Spike is going to miss as Marauder leaped right over it. I have no idea what the Morphling was thinking there. He already strength morphed a good deal, so he wasn't doing that much damage. And then 2v1, that's not good either. This is just falling apart for MiTH. I think Jab could have lived if he just moved like 1 pixel to the south, by the way, but still, it's a 1-for-1 down the bottom that benefits the bat. It's a 1-for-0 up towards top lane that benefits Invasion. Night Stalker's gonna rotate towards the bottom lane, but he can't do anything here.
Yeah, this is really bad for MiTH, actually. Like, I don't know, the end goal for Lakel's up in the top lane really wasn't apparent, and now he goes down towards bottom, even though, from the get-go, this might be a fairly even lane. Ghost now has level 6, and Lakel's is a level 3 Morphling. He's soon to hit level 4, but honestly, Ghost should have this on complete lockdown. Maybe Morphling sneaks a CS here or there, but he needs to be so careful. The aggressive trial lane for MiTH has been an absolute disaster.
And that is not supposed to be the case up against this lane of Invasion. It was pretty much just bad decisions. The first trade was perfectly reasonable. The second was just not supposed to happen, ever. MiPro first nighttime, and it's going to be spent farming until he gets tagged with an arrow. FC has a split, and he will use it in order to secure the kill onto Night Stalker. Another kill for Invasion. Killing off Night Stalker during nighttime, always something huge that, if you can make happen, is going to be winning you some early game fights. Lakel's is going to get initiated upon down towards bottom. Ghost, as he said, has this lane more or less on lockdown, though. Invasion in general have all the lanes on lockdown. Medusa now is up against nobody significant, and her farm is going to start to increase like mad.
It is, and this is scary. Medusa is currently out CSing or even CS with every hero on the side of MiTH, and sitting on 1,000 gold, we might just see a MiTH on this Medusa. I think that would be a solid choice, mostly because I don't think there's any item that's going to help her fight. But going for just the standard stat items going into the normal build is fine too. Phase Boots is going to be the choice, and that is going to help with a great deal up against what they're bringing to the table. Mirana potentially fishing for an arrow down into bottom if ADTR connects, especially onto SD. There's not really much hope of survival, although with the Night Stalker and Ogre roaming in, ADTR probably needs to get out of here. They have spotted out all of these rotations, however, with a pretty nice ward.
And Ghost is actually looking to turn things around. We'll get hexed up immediately. There is a spike here, and will land onto the bat, but SD sitting in the fire, gets tagged with an arrow. I think he might just burn here. Batrider will miss from the low ground. That will mean SD gets to live. Here comes MiPro, but FC is here as well, and that means that Night Stalker cannot pursue any longer. Ghost going to turn around, waiting for the silence to cool off. Will dodge a spike, thinking about a lasso, but will think better of it. MiTH, they should have had a nice opportunity there, but they just can't find it correctly. Arrows once again going to be thrown. SD will not be hit by this one, because it will barely time out. But either way, it's hits being traded back and forth. Ghost so comfortable right now because he does have that lasso. He's level 7. He almost got a free kill as well. I mean, almost doesn't really mean anything, but this is just a 3v5 scenario for Invasion, whereas MiTH, they have everyone down here.
Yeah, and they're getting some space in mid, and they're farming up top on the Medusa. There's just nothing really bad going wrong for Invasion. They're CSing well in all 3 of their cores. They've gotten the kill advantage, and since no towers have fallen, there's not even that to fall back on. Leap away from ADTR is going to keep him safe, and this Night Stalker's first nighttime roaming has been wasted, I want to say. I don't think there's another way to put it. MiPro, he's died once, and that was it.
Normally with the first nighttime, you can't really expect that much to get done anyway, but having absolutely nothing done is usually pretty rare. Usually you get like 1 kill or something like that, but now it's daytime. He's going to run into Ghost, throw a nuke on him, and Void actually does do quite a bit of damage, but not enough to actually be relevant. There is a Mirana set up with an arrow here. Ghost thinking about going in, will think better of it once again, but 5-2, and just look at the net worth difference. That is pretty much telling the entire story. Medusa's up there. She hasn't really been doing anything in this game except for farming and MiTH. They've been looking for opportunities, but they've just been constantly one-upped wherever they go. So Invasion, they're in complete control of this game, and they're in no rush. They're just going to wait for Ghost to get his Blink Dagger, which is very close to being completed. The Brewmaster already has his completed. Medusa has a whole bunch of items to buy left in this game, and so far, MiTH, they haven't found a single opening.
Yeah, there just isn't a clear way for them to find it either. No ability for them to initiate, rivaling that of the Blink Daggers coming out for Invasion. Tidehunter has gone for Arcane Boots before going for his Blink, and he'll be able to farm up the Dagger pretty quickly, but not quickly enough. This first rotation from the Batrider shouldn't net them a kill. It's a smoke purchased up by the Bat as well as by the Ogre.
And usually this will net you a kill unless something really, really wrong happens. Just the surprise factor of a Blink Lasso is usually enough, and even if you're ganking into a lane that doesn't have much damage, it will be usually enough to get a kill on somebody, unless you target the complete wrong target. Over towards bottom, probably not where Ghost wants to go. Mirana is not able to put out that much damage, but he will try his luck anyway. He's going to run into the Ogre Magi. That will blow the smoke, unless, no, it won't. He's going to see him coming and will turn back. Now into the Firefly he goes. We'll get the last one to Naki, and the arrow setup is perfect. Naki is going to not get pulled up to the high ground. Still, he's sitting in fire, and he will be going down regardless. Batrider pretty much doing that one solo, though ADTR will get the assist for it. That is pretty much what's going to happen for the next 5-10 minutes of the game.
Yeah, every time that lasso is off of cooldown. In the meantime, Medusa's been farming away, 2,400 gold. Honestly, going back for the MiTH this game, even after the upgraded boots, I think is a worthy cause. Or just go for something else. Split in mid, they found MyPro. He's going to pop the darkness. That might be enough to save him, but they'll throw him up in the air. Jab is going to get the Anchor Smash, decreasing the damage coming out from these Brewlings, but they'll perch MyPro down, throw a boulder into him. They do not have an arrow, but they don't need it. Ravage connects onto a lot of heroes, but where's the follow-up for it? Jab now in a terrible situation here. Well, Fire Blast on an FZFC over in the sidelines. Ghost is going to be able to drop some fire over the trees. Medusa comes in as well. For now, it's just that kill and a Night Stalker, and that's all that can really be said about this engagement.
That is a kill, and Ravage used Invasion. They used the split, but split for Ravage usually pretty darn even in of itself. With Ketchikimba also involved in this, they'll get the tower. He didn't really do anything to Medusa, so unfortunately didn't get that much benefit there, but he will get a tower destruction, then he will bounce right back to the bottom lane, where Lakels is trying to do something similar, but he's just way too slow at doing it. Invasion now with the 5-kill advantage. They have the Blink Daggers up on everyone who needs it. They have pretty much everything they could possibly want right now, except for more farm on Tekechik, but that is also coming up pretty darn fast. Whereas for MiTH, they need a Blink Dagger on Tidehunter. That will help them. That and level 6 on Lion, I think. Probably MiTH's best chance at actually getting going. It is still yet to be second nighttime, but maybe before that happens, Lakels is going to die. He's being chased down by a whole bunch of Invasion heroes. Here's SD to throw a spike onto OK, but Ghost is going to jump right in for a flame break, pushing Morphling back a little bit. One more arrow, which will connect. Lakel's strength morphing really quickly, though, is out of strength to morph at 500 HP. We'll get another snake applied to him, but it looks like that should just about be it. Morphling gets to live, but he also has to go back to the base. More dead time when Morphling just isn't catching up.
Yeah, and that's problematic. It looks like Deuce is going to be going for a Lincoln Sphere this game. And it's a pretty good game for Lincoln Sphere. I'm not personally partial towards the build. I think going for just raw stats is a little bit better, but it's really nice to be able to sustain yourself. And honestly, this Medusa is going to become unmanageable at a certain point. That point isn't when she completes up Lincoln Sphere, but when you have like Lincoln Sphere, Scotty, Manta, then it becomes really hard to deal with.
Well, she'll be blocking a lot of crowd control effects, and I think that in and of itself is really nice. The Gush is probably the best thing that MiTH can throw her way in order to cancel off that Lincoln's, but if she blocks a Hex, or if she blocks a Crippling Fear or a Void, like all these things are going to be huge for the Medusa in order to get herself a little bit more space, especially that Crippling Fear. Like, if it does come to a late game situation, that fear on Night Stalker is going to be huge. However, SD, it's not late game yet, and he is going to be at the mercy of Brewmaster. He's going to get himself a little bit of space. Ghost is going to bump him back, though. It will be a very easy kill there, and probably an easy tower. Crippling Fear versus Medusa is actually really legit. 50% miss chance is not to be underestimated.
Yeah, eventually MKB should be in Wolf's build, if for nothing else, for the Crippling Fear, but Morphling wants a butterfly eventually, and MKB, just as an item on Medusa in general, is really good, so, yeah, should be on the table. Smoke down in bottom, they have the Blink Ravage available, looking for the jump. They aren't going to spend it immediately, but the Medusa, she gets off her ultimate, the Ravage connects onto her and the Shadow Demon. Shadow Demon ripped to shreds, but now with the split coming through, they're going to lose Noki. Currently a support for a support, Woof Woof hardly has any mana. The stick's going to return to him and get him a little bit more, and the last one to MiPro. It's a disaster for MiTH. They use the Ravage, they lose the tower, and they lose 2 more.
You know the drill.
This is very quickly getting out of hand for MiTH. They're working without Lakel's, but still when you commit a Ravage, you should be expecting a lot more than just a kill on some random support hero, especially when the enemy team is doing so well. The Stone Gaze actually connected on the Ogre Magi. Usually a very tanky hero, was just torn to shreds by the Medusa. And though Medusa wasn't really holding a lot of mana pool then, she will be holding a lot of mana pool in the future when she has a Lincoln Sphere. There is also the workings of an Aghanim Scepter being built up by the Brewmaster, so he's looking to lock down this early stage in the game. And right now, MiTH, they're still not at level 6 with their Lion. This Lion so far has been doing next to nothing. Their Ogre has been doing next to nothing. Hell, everyone on their team has been doing next to nothing just because Invasion have been getting every single engagement to go exactly their way. That was even MiTH initiating, so I don't even know what they could do. It's going to be the Shadow Demon to find Lakel's. Looks like that's not going to result in anything, but if Invasion got the initiation on their terms with the Blink Lasso, then, man, things would have gone so much worse for MiTH, if that's even possible. They're going to lose the Mirana down towards bottom. Looks like she just got a face full of Night Stalker, so maybe comeback time. That was also Finger of Death, though, being spent.
Yeah, that was, in the end, just SD blasting her, so not much you can do about that. Doesn't run a very low HP, but, I mean, first usage of Finger, it's nice to get that kill, don't get me wrong, but it's really hard for them to maintain that, especially with Finger of Death's ridiculously long cooldown. The second Knight also not being very impactful. Firefly jump up onto the Morphling. They don't get the lasso, however. He's able to waveform to safety, and that's also Medusa ulti on cooldown. So, yeah, that didn't work out for Invasion.
I don't know how you miss a Blink Dagger like that, but I don't know, Ghosts found a way. So he ended up overshooting the Morphling, and he couldn't get the lasso in time. Morphling just barely getting out of there. They will know that there's an Observe Ward being placed, so they should know what to do about that, and they have one more sentry to prepare. So Invasion, they don't find that opening necessarily, but they don't need to. Like, kills on Morphlings are just bonus. If you take another look at the net worth chart, I mean, this is getting pretty bad. 7,500 in favor of Invasion. Not as much as inexperience, but still, Invasion, they're right where they want to be and then some. Whereas for MiTH, this nighttime phase has gotten them 1 kill on the Night Stalker, and that's it.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think the Night Stalker was really necessary. Even without the Night Stalker, if that was any other mid-hero, Lion Finger of Death probably would kill Mirana every time. I can't really think of a situation where that wouldn't be the case.
You know, Mirana's not invulnerable when she's leaping anymore, but when she was, you'd be able to dodge Finger of Death, and it would be such bullshit. Like, it wouldn't make any sense at all. So much rage, but yeah, that's irrelevant right now because you still can't get picked off. Either way, Invasion, they have another lasso available from the Batrider. He's maybe going to get smoked up right now, and it looks like now it's just Lincoln Sphere, but Ghost and ADTR, anyone really with the Batrider, can look for these kills. It's going to be MiTH to smoke up first. MiPro and Jab, they're going to be going up towards top. They have their eyes set on FZ. As far as crowd control effects, they need to get this Crippling Fear off before anything else. And they have to save their Void for... Oh, and actually he doesn't have a TP, so never mind. They might get this kill on the Brewmaster, but if they botch this, then it's just going to be a huge waste of time.
Okay, we'll have to see. Right now, the Brewmaster is playing defensively enough, and they haven't initiated the dive yet. He has a Blink Dagger, so it's not the easiest hero to actually go on. But now FCFC looks comfortable enough in this lane, and they should be going now. Blinkin, Ravage, no caustic spent. They are going to silence him. Waveform over the top. Everything spent, but they get the kill.
Here comes Woof Woof from the back. It's going to be focused now onto the Lion as Ghost also blinks forward. Dodging the Impale, Nucky will TP out of there, just being a 1-for-1 trade. Invasion, they previously did use their lasso onto random Lion replicate, so they didn't have that form of initiation. So it's going to be a trade that I suppose benefits MiTH, but they have to do this so many more times on such more important heroes, and the only way that they can actually do this is by using a Ravage, so 1 kill every 2 minutes for them, where they're making even trades while being out-farmed, is not going to bring them back into this game.
No, it's not. Lincoln Sphere is now up for Lakel's, and that's kind of nice as well, especially up against the Batrider. It's going to be a very useful tool. Even just like blocking the disruption will keep you safe from most things on top of it. But still, Lekels needs more items, and his items are going to mean about the same, if not less, than whatever the Medusa is picking up, and she's already well on her way towards going into Manta style, has the Blade of Alacrity, and is going to have the Yasha finished before too long, especially if she completes up this Ancient stack.
Bottom lane, they're going to try to go for MiPro without a lasso. It's pretty bold of them. Do a little bit of damage, but not too much, and Ancient stack is going to be cleared off first of all by Tidehunters. Morphling finds the Shadow Demon. That's a nice pick off for sure for MiTH. If they could keep doing that, that'll be amazing for them. While keeping everyone alive, this is also during the nighttime phase. Well, I guess Night Stalker not doing that much. He's going to go for an Aghanim Scepter, the Night Stalker, but Jab gets tagged with the random arrow. Observer Ward being placed by Invasion. ATTR does not want to leap up there, so he's not able to kill off the Tidehunter. So that didn't actually do anything, except for inconvenience Jab slightly. Minor win, I suppose, but here comes Ghost. This is a little bit better. They're going to lasso Tidehunter. Pull him back into the Ancients is probably their best bet, but with an arrow missing, Jab has a chance to get out of here. He needs to, well, not turn around. That's not what you got to do. He has backup now from the Night Stalker. They're going to go for Ghost, and the Blink and Anchor Smash, not quite enough damage. Here comes Knock from inside, multicasting, killing off Ghost. Now the Hex onto ADTR. Spike as well. Mana Drain. Finger of Death available. Will use it with the Void. That's a dead Mirana. That's 2 kills for MiTH, and they're slowly ganking their way back into this game.
It is quite slow, but if they're able to keep this up, then they do have a way back into it. It's a big gold swing in their favor after those 2 clean pickoffs. They've been able to find, and they're paring back the net worth advantage the Invasion have been sitting on for quite some time. It is really easy when you're farming up a Medusa to kind of just sit back and be really passive about it, but I don't know. They just get caught off a little too alone there, one by one, the Mirana and the Batrider. FZFC does have his split, and taking this fight is pretty easy for them. Mirana's also inbound, and Medusa's farming in the meantime, so they're not really losing anything across the map, and that's going to force MiTH out. They are smoked up, however.
Got a big smoke up, and they're going to look for someone on the bottom half of the map. The only person available is Ketchikimba, and he's very far away, so I don't think the smoke is actually going to do that much unless Medusa runs straight into the enemy, which would probably not be a good idea. No, actually, Ketchik is going to go mid. That's going to prompt no response at all. I thought they were just going to make a 180 and go for mid lane, but instead they're just going to go into their jungle and realize that there's no one there, so that definitely happened. They still have a Ravage. They don't have a Finger of Death. Are they really going to want to fight into Invasion right now? As powerful as Ravage is, I don't know if it's going to instantly win them the fight. Even though it is level 11, it's going to be very, very narrow. The Batrider is going to send some illusions out first. Invasion actually are pushing up top lane pretty well, and yeah, I think this is going to be a little bit more farm time for both sides. Maybe this is getting to a point where Lekels just has to go into super late game mode and has to try to outcarry the Medusa.
And that looks like it's the plan. With Boots of Travel, this isn't a fighting item or anything that's going to help him immediately. It's going to allow him to split push and be a lot more annoying around the map. He is going to be incredibly mobile, and Boots of Travel on Morphling, more than most, is really nice since you can just, I don't know, create a replicate, TP to another lane, and then join the fight again with your Morph. But still, Lekels isn't going to be doing damage, at least until he picks up another item, and even then, probably not enough.
And right now, he's going to be pretty much a useful item behind the Medusa, who's almost at her Manta style. Does she have it completed, actually? No, not just yet. There's a BKB flying out to, I assume, FZ up towards the top lane. It's going to get there just in time as well, because it's going to be MiTH smoking up once again. Big gank train going up towards the top lane. FZ with the BKB and split, unless he gets ravaged and then fingered and then hexed, I don't think he's going to be dying anytime soon. Nighttime is just about going to fall. And they're going to spot FZ. Oh my god.
Oh! You can't mess up a Ravage worse than that. There was nothing to cancel his Blink Dagger. He just didn't blink. Even if he did, there was a BKB on the Brewmaster that they didn't know was there before then. They just didn't click on him. Mirana Ultimate Invis is going to wear off, but Blink up to the high ground by the Brewmaster is going to keep him safe here. And after that, MiTH are just going to walk away.
Well, Jab botched that one, but I guess it's nice because he draws out the 10-second BKB. They didn't know that FC had that one, so now they do know. Though trading that Ravage for intel, probably not what they wanted to do. At least it could have gone a lot worse if they just didn't realize the Brewmaster was there. They're now going to try to go for FC without the BKB. They need that silence on him, though. There's a Blink Hex from SD. Finger of Death as well. They don't have quite enough. Yes, they do. MiPro's going to get the kill. Now they're going to try to run away. However, lasso back onto MiPro. They have Lekels here as well, but MiPro can't really get out of the situation. He's going to decide to turn around for OK. He has no backup. I think he probably could have ran out of there, but either way, it's going to be 1-for-1 trade up on the top lane. Overall, not the worst for either side, but man, this is a pretty sloppy game, I would say, from both ends.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Right now, the Medusa is sitting on about 2,000 gold. This might not be Manta style after all, although up against the Silence coming up from the Night Stalker, I think it's a really good pickup. Medusa is going to be sending that out, so... Or, wait, what? No. No. She's going to be controlling Courier. Blink is fair pop. They're going to Earth Spike and Mana Drain the Medusa, which is really significant, I must say. If you take a look at how much mana that's actually draining, it is maxed out. That's doing 120 mana per second, which is huge, but not enough to kill her. Doesn't do any direct damage, but it does take away her best defensive tool. Blink away will keep the Lion safe.
This Blink Lion is going to be pretty darn huge. We already saw the impact of a Blink Hex. It means you don't have to initiate just with the Crippling Fear or Void or anything like that. You usually want to save Void for a TP out and just to slow them once the first crowd control effect wears off. Lakel is going to get into a duel with Woof Woof, is not going to even come close to winning that one. As the rest of Invasion, maybe they're going to think about going for Roshan. Probably not going to be a high priority for either side since they're so slow in taking it, especially up against an Aghanim after MiPro. You will not be able to take Roshan convincingly, though they're definitely going to try. This is probably MiTH's best chance at making something happen because they just now have a Ravage cooling down. If they catch wind of this, they could crash this really hard.
They definitely could. Scouting out the Roshan's very easy, as you said, with the Aghanim Scepter on MiPro. And for now, Invasion are doing it. They aren't getting in a position for this, and even though MiTH, in theory, could take it, they're actually not going to because it's not apparent that they're actually in the Roshan since Batrider is pushing out mid. Top lane not being farmed is a little bit sketchy, but not sketchy enough apparently, as it's double life for Dusa.
It might not last that long, however, she's going to be facing up against a pretty devastating gank train, and Blink Hex is going to start things off. Actually, something interrupted Lincoln's here. I think that was an adaptive, yeah it was, but SD doesn't jump in. I don't know about that choice. Where's the Night Stalker going? He's going the complete wrong direction for this one. He's going mid. They could have gone in. I guess they're scared about TPs, but you gotta at least test the waters. You need to kill off this Medusa.
I mean, I don't think they kill her twice, so I'm okay with them backing out, but I don't know. I think you go for it. You might lose one of your supports, but now with the Batrider, it's Invasion's turn to go aggressive. They're going to have a completed Scotty now on the Dusa. As soon as she gets enough gold, she'll buy that over at the side shop and then send it out to her on the courier.
It's going to be Invasion just pushing up the top lane. Very direct approach there. They have the Aegis. They have the BKB on the Brewmaster. Now it's available, so FZ's chances of going down close to 0. Maybe they're going to throw another Tidehunter Intimidation Ravage. They have 2 after all. But yeah, Tidehunter has just enough mana to cast both of those. Maybe that's going to help swing a fight in favor of MiTH. They make a tier 1 for tier 2 tower trade. Ultimately for MiTH, I think they should be pretty happy about that, given the fact that they can't really get much better. But they have to still face up against this push. Ghost is ready to initiate whenever he wants to, and he will take to the skies immediately. Where's the MiTH side? They are on bottom lane. Is there even a replicate? He has a TP, but this is something that MiTH cannot ignore.
Yeah, it's really not. They're going to go for an arrow TP down into bottom by the Medusa. Not exactly sure about this move, but I don't know. I think it's fine too. They are going to pull out of this, and trying to catch somebody on the retreat's not going to be possible as they don't catch the Shadow Demon. They might find Ghost, however. They do have a gem, I believe, on the Night Stalker with the follow-up Earth Spike, as well as the Anchor Smash and a multicast and the Fire Blast to boot. Batrider is going to fall down.
I guess they get something. Can't really be too upset about that if you're a MiTH. Night Stalker's chasing power during night is not to be underestimated, with Blink Daggers on the Tide and Lion as well. So hard to escape that, and Invasion, now they're going to know the Night Stalker has both Aghanims and Gem. There is nowhere that's safe to hide for them. Mirana's ultimate is going to be, for the most part, useless. Batrider is probably the only one who could actually deal with this Night Stalker with Gem, just having the initiation power. But either way, the MiTH, they lose that tier 2 tower up on top, but they will gain not 1 but 2 towers off of this one. They're actually not taking the worst trades in the world. If you look at their net worth, they're still behind the Medusa, and that's probably going to be the case for the rest of the game. But their Morphling and Tidehunter not doing too poorly. I think the concern for MiTH is that this Night Stalker is, for the most part, dead weight. He's going to try to go for ADTR, but look at the damage output, not enough. Even with the Ravage, it will barely kill off ADTR as they go now for Wolf. They will get the Impale on him, but the Stone Gaze is already out. Wolf is going to still have that Aegis packing, going to turn around for SD, gets hexed up immediately though as they turn around and kill the Shouty, but FC's going to come right in with the BKB, thinking about splitting, but doesn't really have that much backup. Batrider arriving in a hurry, but who's he going to lasso? It's got to be MyPro at this point, who does see him coming perfectly, will turn around now for Ghost, or at least try to force him back. Wolf does still have a Lincoln Sphere available. FC dumps in once again. He will get stunned up this time, but he will get split off. Second Ravage will barely miss off that Brewmaster before he can get that split, and now Jab is in a hell of a lot of trouble, slowed down by the Scotty with the Brewlings on his ass as well. MiTH, they stick around for way too long, they hold on to the Ravage for way too long, and they end up getting punished. They can't do jack to this Medusa, they barely even touched her.
Yeah, and that's still Aegis on Dusa. Canceling that mana drain from the Lion with the ultimate, Woof Woof was just completely left alone. Honestly, I'd like to see the Dusa go for just straight up damage next. Right now, killing the Dusa is really, really hard for MiTH. I think a Monkey King bar could be in order.
Yeah, so MKB would just make this game so much easier, but it's not too out of the question. I don't know. I mean, it really doesn't matter that much what she goes for, but yeah, maybe just up against Crippling Fear. Really, she wasn't even touched that last fight, so maybe she's going to feel like, oh, I don't need to worry about survivability. I can just go for whatever I want.
Maybe. She is sending it over to the secret shop. What that actually is still yet to be seen. Could be a butterfly. Not a terrible choice, but yeah, it's going to be a butterfly.
Alright, so that's pretty reasonable as well. MiTH, they are very far away from MKBs of their own. Morphling just now finishing up a shotgun 30 minutes in. Might get to show it off versus the poor Mirana. ADTR, get out of there like, no, it's too late. There's the Hex, there's the Spike, Morphling. Not even able to show off that item as Ogre Magi is going to multicast yet again. It's another pick off for MiTH, and they've been getting quite a few of these just random picks. And even though they're not actually taking the massive fights as well, if you get enough of these small pickoffs, you'll be able to, at the very least, keep yourself in the game. A stacked Morphling can put some serious work onto the Invasion side.
Definitely. Yeah, well, we'll just have to see. Invasion right now, they are stalling out a little bit, but still in a lead this game. They have the Aegis, which is now expired on the Medusa just a couple seconds ago. So there's actually no real pressure for them to push high ground yet. They might just wait for the next Roche, which is a little bit risky for them, but I think it's warranted. The Aghanim Scepter for Brewmaster, although it was what he was originally planning on going for, at this point in the game, going for the Ags might be completely out the window, and he is going to pick up Vladimir's offering. I like this move coming out from him. It's going to be a lot of damage, not only for him, but especially for the Dusa. With 180 base, that's like an extra 20 damage. Replicate is going to keep the Morphling safe as he goes down towards bottom.
They do have a Force Staff on the Batrider, so canceling the Lincoln Sphere. Though it is going to take him just a little bit longer, it is going to be enough for the Morphling to get away, and it's a way to cancel the Lincoln Sphere. Still, Morphling is farming not as well as the Medusa, has yet to use the Ethereal Blade for himself, and Night Stalker still is pretty much dead weight. We'll have a BKB soon, but I don't really know if that's going to be too relevant. Magic damage from Invasion, not that high, and everything else will go through it, and both the Stone Gaze and Lasso, so BKB should not really be high priorities for the MiTH side. I don't really know what would be better. Maybe something like the Lincoln Sphere, another thing to cancel off the Lincoln Sphere, and if it does connect and if it does stick, then Medusa is going to be screwed, so I would rather like to see that, or some sort of aura item on the Night Stalker.
Fair enough. I don't think there's really anything better. Night Stalker still going to be more or less a null hero. I think the biggest thing he's done this game is give them the night vision, as well as pick up that gem, but that's now in the hands of Invasion. I'm not sure who's actually hanging on to it. It's the Bat, which is honestly one of the, if not the worst hero to give a gem to.
Yeah, so we have best hero with the gem being given to probably the second best hero with the gem. So we got some true map controllers up in this game. It's going to be a push down the bottom lane for Invasion. I don't really know why they're going for this now. As far as fresh item pickups, nothing too substantial aside from the BKB on Batrider. That might be enough to make them go for this one, but Jab looking for a Ravage angle. They're going to throw an arrow, which will not connect, but Woof Woof sitting very comfortably on the low ground. It's going to put minor amounts of damage into this tower, whereas Morphling trying to make a trade up towards top, just not pushing fast enough, even though he is mostly morphed into agility. It will be enough to force Invasion back, and looks like mission accomplished, I suppose, from Lakel's, but Invasion, if they do make plays like that, then MiTH, that's their chance to punish, because Invasion are going to be at a positioning disadvantage. Clearly, there's been no punishing.
Yeah, and Medusa now with the complete butterfly is incredibly scary for MiTH to deal with. The amount of damage that she's pumping out it's really, really strong, even without any quote-unquote damage items. Just the amount of stats that Medusa has acquired is insane, and it's going to make that Vladimir's offering that much more useful for them. Even though Medusa's not going to get the lifesteal from it, it's still like an extra 30 damage to drop on top.
You get extra damage, you get extra armor, and who could say no to that? It's a good item, turns out. All items in Dota have their purpose. MyPro is going to be leading the charge. Nighttime, unfortunately, is going to break. That was an artificial night. Soon real night is going to fall, but that smoke up towards top is not going to result in anything. As Invasion, they're all down towards the bottom lane. Their Roshan timer is, well, null because Roshan is up, and they should be able to sneak this one. Everyone from MiTH, they're in the complete wrong place, except for the Morphling. But he's also on the top lane now, so that's a free pass for Invasion to kill Roshan, and they should be doing that, or they should think about that right now, if not a defense on top lane. Either one they could probably get away with.
Yeah, I think so too. Right now, their decision is to do neither, posturing around both objectives. It looks like they're going to bring the Medusa up towards the top, getting delivered what appears to be just a TP scroll, and they will defend the tier 2 just by Woof Woof being there. Not much that MiTH can actually do to this Medusa.
Medusa's almost 6-slotted. Like, it's getting really scary. Manta Style, I assume, is going to be the next pickup for Medusa, as once you get Butterfly, Manta Style just gets so much better with the additional agility. But even if she doesn't want to go for that, even if she wants to sell the Yasha, going for that MKB, as you said, or anything else, like even a Sheep Stick would be pretty good for the team. I don't know. It's going to be real rough for the MiTH Trust side to get through to this Medusa. With Hex only being level 1 as well, like, it's going to get to a point where the best option for MiTH is to just CC the Medusa and then try to kill the rest of her team. And that's hard, killing off a Brewmaster and a Pat Rider with Shadow Demon backup.
Yeah, I mean, Rana and Shadow Demon themselves are pretty easy for them to take down, but they'd probably have to commit like a shotgun or a finger to do it effectively inside the team fights, or quickly rather. SD currently is potentially in a bit of trouble, but their Force Staff and Lasso is going to be spent onto Jab instead. He tried to TP out of there, and that's just not going to work. He's completely hosed.
At least he still has his Ravages, and he does not have a buyback, so maybe this is going to be an opening for Invasion. They have a minute to do this, and I think a minute is going to be more than enough time they actually need. It is real nighttime right now, so Night Stalker is going to be, packing that full vision, which is not too useful when you're defending your base. So their best bet is to try to just split push and try to force Invasion back. Morphling's already on that. He's going to force the Bat back. Bat Rider can't do much to deal with the Lakels, but he will make this push come to a complete halt. They have 30 seconds left if Invasion want to go for it. It looks like they don't. They're still in no rush. Morphling, though, he's catching up to the Medusa slowly but surely, as Medusa will eventually just be capped out. Lakels is not going to be capped out, so he still has more room to grow. And it's still possible for MiTH to just take this in the late game. It's difficult for sure, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, it definitely isn't, but now with the double life onto the Medusa, it's going to get a whole heck of a lot harder. They have the Boots of Travel, probably going to be shipping away those phase boots here pretty soon. And it feels like, I don't know, Medusa's just going to be able to run over them in the next couple of minutes. But if they do stall out, and this game isn't over in like 20, I want to say, maybe there's hope for MiTH, but right now it's looking pretty grim.
And it's always hard to say that, oh, they could take it late versus Medusa. It's not very common that we see teams beating a Medusa at her own game. But at this point, I don't really know if MiTH have any better options. They have that, or they have the double Ravage Dream and killing off the Brewmaster, not getting initiated upon by the Bat Rider. It's a lot of things that has to go correctly if they actually want to make that happen, but it's not completely impossible for that to happen either. We're dealing in slim possibilities, like extremely slim, and I don't know if that's even worth mentioning, like these slim possibilities, but for MiTH, they are very far behind right now, and Invasion, maybe this time they were going to fully commit to the bottom lane. They're going to travel in with the Bat Rider, and yeah, it looks like this is going to be their attempt at breaking base.
Right now, Medusa is just an absolute juggernaut in the front lines. The mischance applied by the Crippling Fear is going to be annoying. I believe you can Manta out of the entire effect of Crippling Fear, so if that was there, it wouldn't have mattered, but now a split shot going to work, even with Mana Drain. As annoying as that is, it's going to cost SD his life as he's lassoed into an arrow, my goodness. Lion, whether he saw it coming or not, he wasn't living for much long after that. Melee Barracks going to fall down, Force Staff into Blink, they get the Ravage, but where's the follow-up onto Ghost? It is going to be a double multicast, and they will be able to bring down the Batrider, but he's already done his job, and now with the Split and the Stone Gaze, it lands into MiPro, Arrow Flights through the dead corpse of the Ogre, and MiPro is going to be brought down the kills. Going into the backlines, looking for a shotgun target. The Shadow Team is the one he wants, but can't he even get that? Self-Disruption is going to say no, and he's forced to go back into the base as Medusa mops up the entire lane, and now swings mid.
A Ravage and a Morphling is all MiTH have in order to defend. FC does not have a split available any longer. The mid lane is decently pushed in, at least enough for Invasion to continue this push, and they still have the Aegis going. They took that one rather convincingly. Wolf pretty much untouched in that entire fight. The only reason he actually lost mana was because Lion actually just straight up mana drained her. They're going to play it defensively up towards top. They're going to take no chances. Although I think they could very easily just go for second set of racks, especially now that Daedalus is available for the Medusa. This is getting really bad for MiTH. That Ravage connected onto 4, yet there just wasn't enough damage. Killing off a Batrider, as nice as it is, isn't how you win this game if you're MiTH.
Yeah, right now Medusa is the scariest hero on the map, and that's not going to change until everybody on MiTH. Yeah, ever. Yeah, I think ever is fair enough to say, but until everybody on MiTH is 6-slotted. But yeah, Medusa just can't be stopped. That Aegis, it wasn't even getting close to being procced, and that's partially because they weren't focusing down the Medusa because she had Aegis, but then again, even if they were, I don't think she would have died.
Yeah, she would have died once, maybe. The dream is you kill her off before she could activate her mana shield. But even if you do that, like she has, or even if she doesn't activate her mana shield, she still has 2400 HP. She's still reasonably tanky right now. In fact, she's probably more tanky than most of the heroes on MiTH she is. Like, she is almost by far the tankiest hero in the game. Brewmaster is following up slightly behind her, but Wolf is doing the most damage. He has the most survivability. What the hell are you supposed to do?
Push mid. Look for another set of barracks for Invasion. But for MiTH, pray that Medusa loses internet connection and stays AFK in base.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules are for pause timer, but hope that Medusa can't reconnect for however long. And, well, it's going to be Morphling barely escaping death up towards top. The rest of Invasion, though, they're still going to go for it. Aegis timer, soon to be reclaimed. So Wolf might not get value out of it, but I don't really think he's going to be crying over a little bit of lost value. 40 minutes into the game when your Medusa is this big. In fact, he needs the item slot, so Aegis get the hell out of his inventory. He's going to bulldoze the tier 3, then it's on to the ranged. Nucky, he's going to walk up for a Lincoln Sphere proc, but drop half his HP in exchange. They gotta go, like, now, or else they're just going to outright lose the game. Like, if they sacrifice this, then they might as well just tap out right now, because they clearly don't want to defend it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're hoping for the Aegis to expire, and it is going to in about 30 seconds, but not before they lose melee barracks. Ravage coming out from Jab. They might be able to kill off Ghost, and they might be able to kill off FCFC. They refresh the Ravage, drop it, but that's onto a BKB Brewmaster. They might be able to get the 2 supports with the Finger of Death. They will, but now Blink Clap Split coming out from the Brewmaster, going to CC down Jab as well as the Night Stalker. From the low ground, Wolf can't do much. It's actually got a boost of travel onto the high ground, onto the Wind Panda, so they can actually find an angle, but ends up getting stunned up in the process, so it doesn't really matter. He's going to end up chasing exactly where he was TPing from. But now with the Scotty, the chase does continue, and MiPro lassoed down. That feels like it's it. They have a buyback on the Tidehunter, but no Ravages. Where's the Morphling through all of this? He can't look for a base trade. He's doing a decent amount of damage, but not enough when you compare it to the Medusa. He's forced to waveform out of there. Noki and Lakel's do survive, and they buy back on the Tidehunter, but Invasion got what they came for.
And I'm actually surprised they're not continuously fighting right now, because Medusa is still untouched during that entire thing. She, I mean, was ignored. You can't really do anything about her, so you have to ignore her, but you kind of can't afford to. She now has the gem, which I'm sure is not going to be sticking on her for very long. Probably will ship that one up to the Batrider, then get something else that's a little bit more fun if you're the Medusa. But that's 2 sets of Raxes now in favor of Invasion. MiTH, they don't make a defense, even though they don't end up outright losing after that push. Yeah, it definitely Invasion to take that one convincingly. And with no double Ravage up, the rest of Invasion could just assemble over in the mid lane. They have all their ultimates, bar the Brewmaster, which is going to be up in 20. I think this game might be coming to a close very shortly if Invasion just move down the mid lane.
I don't think it matters what Medusa is going to get, and Medusa's going to go for a BKB. It's a solid choice. I mean, if you look at MiTH's damage, it's pretty much all magical, and blocked by BKB to boot. So Medusa really has nothing to fear if she goes for the BKB. If you're going for a defensive item, I would love to see a Bloodstone Medusa, not because it's good, but because I'd love to see it.
It's actually pretty sweet if you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Except for the fact that, like, it is 42 minutes in the game, and you're probably not going to get that many charges.
That's the issue with the item on Medusa. Yeah. Even though it's really nice to have infinite mana, like, Mana Shield is so good if they don't have a anti-mage on the enemy team to burn.
And also reduce spawn timer. Like,
yeah.
Well, Lakel's is going to assassinate the Shadow Demon, but that's not really relevant. But reduce spawn timer for a carry like that, that's pretty sweet to be, like,
yeah, it is.
Always up.
And yeah, the problem is just that it would come too late because you are getting it for a defensive item instead of for an aggressive one. First item, Bloodstone's never going to happen. They'll find themselves a lasso on Inoki and he's gone. Ethereal Blade tickles Woof Woof. My goodness, that did like no damage. They void him. Yeah, Deuce is still at like full HP.
They're going to do what they can. Crippling Fear now down the tubes. Arrow's going to fly, which will not hit anyone. But MyPro has got to run forward, then has got to run back. BKBs are up on everyone as Ravage is thrown. Will connect onto 0 people. Now Jab is down. And Lakel's and SD, the only ones alive, the only ones who can be alive as well. Ghost will die to the Ethereal Blade of the Morphling, but I think they're okay losing that Bat Rider. FZ is now going to get into a man fight with Lakel's Finger of Death, doing next to nothing. FZ still has a split if he really needs it. They're chasing down Lakel's because they're trying to force out the GG, but it looks like FZ, no, he's not going to go for the Raxes. Okay, they really want to just get this Morphling killed, and Morphling has a lot of strength to morph, so getting this kill is not going to happen. Wolf Wolf and Sagan decide to travel over mid. Maybe they should end this game the old-fashioned way. It looks like they will do so. Split just to guarantee melee Raxes. It's a celebration split as well. This game is over.
Yeah, there's not anything that MiTH can do at this point. Maybe, just maybe, they could hold up against just Mega Creeps, but there's no way they're holding up against the Medusa. Fire Blast onto the Wind Panda, doing as much as they possibly can. They might actually catch Morphling. No. He's actually not getting gone, and he's just trying to morph his agility since he was sitting at like 4,000 HP before. BKB pop by FCFC. BKB on cooldown for Medusa, or else he'd probably pop it too, but they can just kill the throne.
And let's see if they could actually kill off Wolf Wolf. I would like to see everyone on MiTH just right-click Wolf and throw everything they have at her. Hey, look, I'm getting my dream. Are they hitting her? I can't even tell. It doesn't seem like they're hitting her.
Doesn't look that way. Between Butterfly, Mana Shield, and just the raw HP and stats, yeah, that just happened. You actually can't fight her. GG is called up by the Nine Stalkers. Lakel's also dies, and the throne might die naturally before the Ancient explodes due to the 10 seconds. They'll pop Deuce ulti and just right-click it down.
The Ancient explodes, and Invasion are going to take this to a game 3. It was a slow and steady game from them, and I think it might just all come back to the early game. The Tidehunter losing versus the Bat Rider from minute 0. The Morphling tri-lane utterly failing from MiTH, and Night Stalker not doing anything. Like, one too many things going wrong for MiTH, and Invasion take the win.
Yeah, I really like their draft, but it just doesn't work out. Maybe we'll see something a little bit more standard come game 3 for them, because right now, they really want to win this series and continue on in the tournament. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon with game number 3.